So when we first released the windshield roof light bar system for the 2021 and up Ford Bronco, the first question asked by the Bronco community was, will this work with the Ford OEM roof rack? The answer to that question is yes. However, you do need to make some modifications to the light bar housing and the front rack arm. We're gonna show you how we did that on this wild track from start to finish. Let's get into it. All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of disassembly here. We're gonna take the light bar out of the housing. So we're gonna loosen this 13mm nut on both sides. We don't need to take the nut all the way off. We just need to loosen it enough to get this out. All right, now with the two end nuts loosened, we're gonna pull the light bar out of the housing. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the covers for the rack. It's two T30s. All right, so next we're gonna remove the two 10mm bolts on each side holding the rack arms to the truck. So first what we're gonna do is we're gonna lift the two front rack arms, just get those free, and then we're gonna take our housing, we're gonna slide it underneath, and we're gonna get this centered up where it should be. We're gonna temporarily put the rack arm covers back on and let that rest. And now we're gonna carefully trace the outline of the cover. I'm using a Sharpie. This is gonna serve as our beginning cut lines. We may have to modify this a little bit. We may have to do some trimming as we go. All right, now that we've got some rough cut lines marked, we're gonna go ahead and remove the housing. We can go ahead and lay this back down for now. All right, so before we go to cut, we're gonna go ahead and just kind of clean up our lines here. This will just give us a nicer area to cut along. So we'll just follow this line. This does take a steady hand. Just take your time. So I'm using an air saw to do this. However, you can get the same result with a Dremel with a cutoff wheel if you don't have access to pneumatic tools. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and test fit this. Get it slid on. You wanna make sure that it's even from end to end, and we are looking good. So to make room for the light bar brackets, we do need to trim off the front section of the rack arms. So we've got adequate cover here, and we're gonna go ahead and just make a quick cut straight across. All right, so we're gonna clean this up, and then we're gonna cut the exact same amount of material off of the other rack arm. So now we're gonna slide the light bar back in the housing. There we go. So we wanna make sure that we tighten these in bolts as much as possible. We're gonna get our assembled light bar on the truck. We're gonna lift up the rack arms and we're gonna get our brackets centered. Now we're gonna get our rack arms down over the studs. So we're gonna get our 10mm back on. All right, so the last step is we need to trim just a little bit of material off of the front covers for the rack arms, and that'll allow these to sit down and be bolted in, and then everything will look good as new. So we need to trim off about 2 inches of material from the front cover for the roof rack. This is gonna allow us to bolt this back on over the light bar bracket. You can take a blade and clean off these rough edges. What we'll do is slide this cover back on. All right, we're gonna get our T30s back in. All right, we're good to go.